The tech bros are trying to take away your humanity, but you're not a machine. Let's talk about what it means to live like a human in this high-tech world. This is Analogish, and I'm your host, Becky Mollenkamp. Welcome back. I have Whitney Pollard with me today. Whitney is the founder of Homii. It's a global community platform designed to help travelers and locals build meaningful connections through curated events and shared experiences. Also, a former corporate leader turned world traveler because you have lived in multiple countries and traveled to over 30, maybe more by now. And so all of that is what has brought you to what you're doing now. Thank you for being here, Whitney.
Thank you for having me, Becky. I'm excited for this conversation.
Me too. Let's start with Homii because, first of all, it's a great name. It's Homii for anyone who's not watching and you can't see Whitney's shirt. And it's an app that you're building or have built. Can you first just kind of give us an update, a status report of where it's at?
Yes, so the app is not out yet, but we have launched live in Vietnam. That's where I currently live. We started in Hanoi, Vietnam, and now we have launched in Saigon or Ho Chi Minh City. Basically, we are doing market research, understanding who shows up, how they show up, who repeats, our friendships forming. And we're learning from those real life interactions to understand what can then go into an app that mimics the actual flow of connection.
Now let's take a step back and tell me what got you to this point. You're a former corporate leader. I don't know if your background is tech specifically. What made you get to a place where you're like, I want to build an app?
I am an engineer by degree, but not in tech. I worked in manufacturing for companies like General Electric and Train. I did that for 10 years. I pivoted into HR for a year and a half after my MBA from University of Michigan, and I got laid off. And so after the layoff, I decided to gift myself with a year of travel. I got laid off in 2023, and so I got to Southeast Asia in August of 2024. Eventually, once I landed in Vietnam, there was just like a pull for me to stay. And it started honestly with content creation. So I started to post on TikTok about my experience being a Black American living in Vietnam. This is how we're alike. These are the similarities between the culture, and more so painting this picture that we're more alike than we are different. And if we focus on those parts, then the differences become less of a challenge, and maybe we could see each other as people first. And I started working social media for a pottery shop randomly, and I started with a content creators event. So that gets us to the fast track to Homie. And so I started to pay attention to what people seeked me out for, what was my brand outside of my corporate job. And that was often around community. And two of my friends actually said, Whitney, you're really good at this connections thing. One of them is a realtor who has clients who were moving to Vietnam. The other one taught Vietnamese to non-Vietnamese speakers, two groups of people looking for community and connection. And they said, we think you should do events with our clients. And so I started to do that. Because of social media, people started to pay attention. Businesses started to reach out and say, hey, come do something in my space. And I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing, but okay. And I decided long term that this is what I feel called and ready to do. I have a background in the skill set that has made me equipped and ready. I'm basically taking those insights and putting it into a digital infrastructure.
Our goal is to talk about finding some balance with that digital life and then like real life.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons that we connected and want to talk is because what you're trying to build is something that you specifically said is trying to be that bridge between our digital lives and our real lives. How is Homie serving as that bridge?
One of the things that I've realized through our market research is people are desperate for connection in person. However, due to technology, it has made it very difficult for people to know where to go know where they can feel safe and belong. We are so attached to our phone and the scroll and the ease of things. And there's a lot of anxiety around one, even just getting out of one's head to say, I want to go out and connect, no matter if it's a big event, a small event, something that's niche to a certain interest or a certain identity. But then there's just people who are I call the lower hanging fruit, where they're looking, but information is so scattered. You don't really know what to trust. There is no one platform that is truly suited for community the way that humans actually connect, right? You have Facebook groups, and that can be a mix of things depending on who runs it, who's the host and the administrators. There's like Eventbrite, but those are for larger concert type of events. Meetup, again, depending on where you are regionally. Again, you don't know the host. And so what Homie is doing is taking the digital piece that works as far as communicating to people where you can go. And then we're taking it a step further through a vetting process. So what we aim to do is not only highlight and curate events and experiences, we also want to train the host and also provide training and information to third spaces, because what we don't want to have happen is someone overcomes the fear of even putting themselves out there and then they have a horrible experience. And as we know, with AI and loneliness is increasing and all of these things, I think it's a crucial time to do this. And as someone who has built community from school to corporate cross countries, I think I have a pretty knowledgeable base to find a way to help this scale, but also be very intentional about what we're building around trust, care, and belonging through these events and
Yeah.
experiences.
You've mentioned belonging. It's such a key word. I think we're all sort of relearning how to exist in real life, because COVID also came at a time when the digital world was just really exploding. So it's not just about COVID. It was kind of all these things coming together. How has your visiting 30 different countries plus living in other countries, how has that informed how you think about belonging and about what you were talking about earlier, the things that we have in common versus what we don't, and just what that means for you when you think about an offline experience?
Yeah, I think traveling abroad in general, especially as a Black person, being Black and American comes with a privilege. However, Americans, we don't, if we generalize and look at stats, we don't travel abroad often, even just as American, and as a Black American, even smaller subset. And I had a playbook for when I traveled. And I think that's what really started this, is people always ask, how do you find these people? For me, community is important. Pre-COVID, there was a lot of like Black in insert country groups. So like Black in Portugal, Black in Mexico, Black in Colombia. Travel gave me exposure to the fact that these communities exist, but it also gave me insight to the varying types of communities and which ones do well for actually community building versus what's meetups and parties. And then the more you travel, you meet people. I will always like to go on free walking tours. Typically, you can find other solo travelers, because that's another identity that I'm carrying with me, is I'm a solo traveler. But being in Asia has been definitely, an experience, because in other parts of the world, are at least Black people from all over the diaspora and in larger amounts than exist where I am in Vietnam. In Vietnam, no matter, I've been here a year and a half now, I can have the same routine. I'm always going to be a shock to someone. And it became very important for me to find my home bases, the places where I can go and I can just be once I get inside. And it typically started with the owners of the space. Why did they create the space? How did they train their staff? Am I gonna be asked to take pictures or to touch my hair? In certain environments, you can tell when a manager has trained them on certain things and when that training doesn't exist. And those spaces became very crucial for me because at least I found grounding. So then as I continue my day, I can remember the place where it's like I was able to breathe. And that gives me a little more ability to keep going. And as you keep going, because the longer you stay in a place, the more you have more occurrences of the good. Eventually, you don't think about it anymore. Like my day one in Vietnam was not my 1 month, was not my 3 months, it was definitely not my year and a half. But that's because I stayed. And I stayed because I was able to find those places that felt like home. I found my homies. That's literally what it's about. And it's different for everyone, right? But I also know the truth of the matter of how people find their places. Hey, Whitney, what do you like? Typically that's gonna be a Black female, maybe somebody's also from Louisiana or from America. Like we share a baseline that says, I trust whatever information you're providing, because if Whitney says it's okay, I know kinda we share similar standards for what is okay, and at least I can start there. And maybe that's not my forever comfort spot or where I belong, but it's probably a better start than me going to Google. And I just wanna help point people to the spaces where you get there a little faster and maybe make you stay a little longer.
There's so many things you talked about there. First of all, I just want to say some of that is so universal, even if you're not traveling. If
Yes,
you're trying to find connection and create belonging with real humans offline, online too, but even more so offline, some of it does start with how do we find a baseline of understanding? And so, what are those things that we do have in common to create that baseline understanding? I know one of the things a lot of people are experiencing right now in these last 5, 6 years. And honestly, I think even before that, as we've lived more of our lives online, is this sort of almost feeling out of touch with how do I find friendships? How do I even have a conversation? You mentioned in something that in the intake form I sent you about just losing the ability to strike up a conversation with a stranger. So
yeah.
I'm kind of curious, as you've been living in other places, having to sort of exercise these muscles in new ways, what has it shown you about that online living that we've been doing so long, or the skills that we need to work on in order to have these human relationships?
I may be an anomaly here because I'll start with what I'm now learning is how I grew up and the industries that I worked in, the people I surrounded myself with has only compounded to make me very community connections oriented. And I say that like I grew up in a church that is very communal. And I also, my mom had me at 37. The reason that's important is because I always wanted to go to somebody else's house that had other children around. And so, like, I was used to adapting to a lot of different environments because I wanted to go to this cousin's house or this friend's house. And so I grew up very much so, one, able to adapt, able to communicate even to strangers or to newer people because I was often putting myself in a lot of situations. I left home at 18 and I never really went back. And so I moved to 6 different states. So like I have always been constantly I remember in college taking myself on solo dates at 18 years old. And that's like very uncommon. I know 30-year-olds who still have not taken themselves on a solo date. So I've been exercising this muscle of how to just say, lean in into a conversation and eavesdrop a little bit, or, smile and maybe look a little warm and inviting for someone to say, hey, where are you from? And like, you kind of start that conversation or sitting at the bar because typically bartenders, they're trained in social communication and to bring you in. One, they do it for sales, but they also know, like the more I talk to owners throughout this process, a lot of them say, like, I created a bar because I wanted something that reminded me of my home bar. My home bar saved me. My home bar gave me a place to belong, and I wanted to give that to other people. And then in the pandemic, I was in business school. Like, for anybody who knows about going to a top 10 business school, like, that is a crucial, expensive, process, and we applied thinking we would have this in real life experience. And one of the things that was always my motto, I even have it like tattooed on me, is be the change. During the pandemic, it's like, well, we could be sad that we're not going to get this experience, or we can do something about it. And I even organized events during the pandemic.
Can I ask you really quickly, Whitney? Because
Yeah,
as you're talking, especially about this, you are the kind of person who, like you said, creates communities. There are people who are probably hearing this going, that sounds amazing. And that's not me. For those people who are like, sure, it's easy for her to connect and find belonging, but that's not me. What kind of advice do you have for those folks who are not wired? And maybe it's harder because you're not wired like them, but you're creating the spaces for them. So what kind of
correct.
advice do you have for them? Because I think 90% of us are probably that and not the 10% that's you.
But I think that that is who I'm designing for. And that's why we're starting with identity and interest, and we're getting to know you. So we're getting to know, are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? Is 6 people too many? Is 3 enough? So then we can understand, one, how do we curate based on who you are? So we start there. We don't start by like mimicking just me. Like, I get to know who you are. And that's why we have a variety of things. So some will be community, like our salsa dance. That's one community. So maybe you just kind of want to go by yourself. You can show up. It's a class. Maybe it's easier for you to do it in the class than going to the bar. Or maybe you rather go to the bar and just like sit there and then let things naturally happen. And at some of the events, which is what we plan to do while we train the host, is we say, hey, there are going to be people who come along. They won't know anything about each other, but we're going to say, hey, these 2 people from North Carolina, maybe sit them at the table together. Or these 2 people both like reggae music. And those little things is not a lot. It's a little, but it helps the person that is scared and afraid. It makes it a little more human, but it's just that those small little attention to details.
You're really interested in third spaces. And I had Altagracia Mantilla on earlier in the season talking about third spaces. She runs both a virtual third space and an in-person third space and understanding how important those are. What's your interest in third spaces?
Third spaces in America are disappearing, especially like your more local run places. Now they're being replaced by like the Starbucks or whatever big chain thing. But, and there's also this sense of being rushed. Like you can't just go to a place and be. Whereas in Vietnam, there's third spaces everywhere. Like people right now are sitting out on the sidewalk at a coffee shop at 1:34 in the morning on a plastic chair and chilling, and like that's it. But the thing is, a lot of people, especially if you're meeting, you don't want to go to anybody's house. You want a space where you can just show up and you can exist and you can be, whether that's a gaming cafe, a book club, the wine bar, whatever that is. Those, the way I'm like envisioning it is like these are adult mini student unions. Like when you were in college, you knew where you can just go and hang out. You went to the student union, or you went to this park, or this types of people went over to whatever dormitory, living area, whatever that was. After college, maybe after your first few years of corporate, these things disappear. But it is not because it's no longer essential. And so now it's about helping people. How do you find that? How do you make sure that it's cozy? And even if it's coaching the businesses of, hey, if you do these 3 to 4 things, we can help vet you and get you and attract the customers that you need. And so I'm looking at it from a business standpoint too, because it is a business. If you continue to do well, then word of mouth and people show up. And people like routines. Like they like knowing I like
Yeah.
to go to this place and I can always see Ed, making my mango smoothie or whatever that is. And because people want to feel seen, they want to feel seen, they want to feel cared for, and they want to go to a place where they can
That's part of
trust.
that feeling of belonging.
Correct. And I think
Yeah.
the other
And
thing
oh, go ahead.
no, I'm just gonna add one more thing as far as, like, with technology, because what's also ruining that is content. Like, you don't know where you can go anymore that's not just an aesthetic or that someone was paid a free meal just to say this place was good or this was nice, and you can't trust reviews much anymore, and so, like, I wanna bring that back. So even when we're looking at how do we review places, it's not, "Was it good?" It's, "Would you eat your last meal here? Will you bring your mom here?" Like things that's a little more emotional and makes you think a little bit more than just, oh, it was 5 stars because they told me to leave a 5-star review and they gave me a free shot.
I want to finish up by talking about balance because I know that that's something you're real time working on because you're using technology to help solve for in real life feelings of belonging. How do you personally, Whitney, find that balance when you are having to obviously spend time, a lot of time online, building, thinking about tech, trying to learn and, all of that?
Now I'm definitely online a lot just because of I am a content creator and I'm launching a business. However, daily I make time for in-person experiences. And so no matter if it's I'm going to Alibi on Wednesday for happy hour and I make sure phone's up. I'm not on my phone. If I'm with people, I am fully present. I'm not scrolling. I also dance salsa 3 nights, maybe 4 times a week. And so that keeps me off of my device. And so typically I have my working hours where this is probably the 8 hours that I am on some form of technology, no matter if it's social media, creating content, or using tools to help me build Homie. But once I'm offline and I'm plugged into the thing. But I do have a lot of hobbies. And I think that's the beauty of building work around community is I'm always in community. There's also a beauty culturally about being in Vietnam that does not exist in America. And that is business is not rushed. Like all of my business things that happen here is I have to go and I have to physically meet this person in real life and we have to sit and we have to have coffee and we have to talk. And I need to get to know who you are as a person and you have to get to know me as a person before we even talk business. Just culturally where I am, the young people for sure they swipe and scroll. So I'm not saying like Vietnam is exempt from the overuse of technology. However, there is a let's sit, let's be real, let's be in person element that just exists culturally in business and in community here that makes it a lot easier for me.
That's lovely. And as you think about Homie and its growth over time, what is it you hope it does for the world?
My North Star is always around unity. One, if I can help people understand that we are more alike than we are different, and that if we can see people, then that can help produce more togetherness, less divisiveness in the world. And I know that because Whitney probably even 23, 24 years old, was still very ignorant about the world. And the more people I got to know, the more I started to question what I was told and started to do my own research and land on my own conclusions. Like one of the most beautiful moments is I had a karaoke event Christmas Eve. It was 70 people. You have people from Norway, the US, Vietnam, all over the world. And I can just see people like unlearning in real time when this black girl gets up there and she sings like Nickelback or like, I don't know, some rock song, something just very against the norm of what someone probably was told about black people, right? Or the way she looked. And then the white girl started singing Rihanna and got a tambourine. It was just like such this beautiful moment of everybody is breaking whatever stereotype the world was given. And you can see the process and I'm like, wait, what? I'm so shocked. That was the song we picked or that these people are vibing out because they like a song. But that's how most people
Yeah.
connect is because you have something that you like. There's some identity or an interest. And if we start there, I think some of the other things just naturally happen.
There's a lot there's a lot of healing that can come from all of that, which is a beautiful thing for
Yes.
Homie to do.
Yes.
That
Yes.
that's long-term goals. Let's talk about, like, this week. For somebody who's
This
listening, what's the one thing you'd want them to take away from this conversation, or the one thing you'd like to see more people do this week?
I think a lot of people have that one thing that's like, I want to go and do this or I want to try that. I would say go. Like if you want to take that dance class or you want to learn that language, you want to take that trip, you want to even try that new meal, right? Or like even if it's cooking, whatever that cooking class or whatever, go and do the thing that is the little voice in the back of your head is telling you that you wanna do. Make one step. Like, I'm not saying go boil the ocean. Just sign up for the class and attend or text the person and schedule the coffee chat. Whatever it is, that one thing, just actually act on it and go do it.
I love it, and I think the one thing I'm gonna take from this is to strike up a conversation with a stranger. 'Cause it sounds like you're doing a lot of that, and it makes such a difference in just not even in necessarily creating a friendship, but just creating that sense of belonging. Finding the one thing you have in common with a stranger, can you do that and feel more like belonging in the space you're in? So I love that inspiration that you've given me.
Thank you.
And is there anything else you wanna add, Whitney, or where people can find you or Homie?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok, a little bit on YouTube at Whitney DeGale, Dagail. That's my middle name. You can find Homie at Homie HOMII Global on Instagram, and our website is up. It's not fully launched well yet, but it's and there's, like, videos of our past events. Any chance you're in Vietnam, check out an event.
And even if you're not in Vietnam, check them out
Yes.
just because I'm sure it's inspirational and maybe it'll motivate you to do
Yeah.
something in your own community until Homie is global.
Yes.
Well, thank you
Correct.
so much, Whitney, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Becky. I appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to Analogish. This episode is over, but the world is still out there. Go find it.